Hey, gorgeous soul, and welcome back to Love, Sex, and Magic. Today's guest is Arielle Estoria. She is a poet, she is a writer, she is an author, and she is a force to be reckoned with. I cannot wait to share this episode with you. We talked all about creativity, we talked about finding your voice online. We talked about comparison and showing up in your own lane. We talked about self-love, self-care, boundaries, and there's only really one word to describe this episode, and that is magic. So enjoy.
There's magic in your bones. There's magic in your eyes. There's magic swimming all around in your mind. There's magic in you. There's magic in me. There's magic in us. If only we believe. I am 1/3 poet. I'm 2/4 perfectionist. I am imperfect, chaotic, frazzled, and indecisive. I can be moody and negative, self deprecating and hypocritical. I advocate for the beauty and importance of everyone else. And I sometimes deny my own. I am often thinking that I won't measure up. I won't achieve any other level of success. Most days I feel like a fraud, like people will look behind my curtain and find a mess of a woman, and they will not love me like still. I love like still, like ocean always coming back to shore, simply hoping to be loved in return. I am in love for the first time in my life, and it is terrifying and beautiful all at once. I am becoming slowly unwinding into who I've always been meant to be. It's like meeting a distant and yet longed for piece of you that has always reminded you of home. I am home to one too many emotions, to fantasies and dreams that seem as realistic as fairy dust. I sometimes still believe in magic, hope that it is tucked in the wings of a butterfly, or maybe in the dimples of a really chunky baby, in the colors of a sunset, or the way that he looks at me. And they may call me something like foolish, 28 years old and still believing in magic. But what if the thing we're most afraid of is not that it doesn't exist, but that it's lived inside of us all this time and we called it foolish? Well, then call me foolish, because I could see it swimming in my veins. And every time I take a breath, magic tucked on the tip of my tongue. It is no wonder why these words are sometimes the most necessary healing I've come to know. So call us foolish, because I could see it swimming in your veins. And every time you take a breath, magic tucked into your very existence, so much so that your breath is a miracle. And you are a miracle. There's magic in your bones. There's magic in your eyes. There's magic swimming all around in your mind. There's magic in you. There's magic in me. There's magic in us. If only we believe.
Wow. Wow. Oh my goodness, I am covered in goosebumps. You
Thank
are
you.
such a gift. Arielle, welcome to Love, Sex, and Magic, and
Thank you.
thank you for bringing your magic to us. Oh my goodness. And what a perfect poem as well.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my goodness, where to begin? how do we how do we follow that? I would really love to hear your story of
Mm,
finding your own magic. Is this
yeah.
something that you've always been aware of? These creative gifts of yours, your ability to really feel so deeply and translate that for other people?
I think the conversation is similar to those who, are now body awareness people or body positive people or health therapists and things like that. You can imagine that at one point in time in their story, they weren't those things that they now became. And the same goes for me. I did not always know how to embrace my own magic. More so, I didn't think I had magic to embrace. A lot of it became a part of that story. And then slowly realizing, I do have things to contribute to this world. I am myself magic, and that became something I learned and realized over time. But it took a long time. I wish I would have known sooner um, who I was and what I felt like I was able to contribute to this world. But I think that's all part of the process of it all. I think that's all part of learning about who we are, and the process of embracing our own magic really does start with the awareness that we have it in the first place. And so I had to be aware of it, and then to accept it, that the way I was gifted and able to contribute to this world was not a way that anyone else was capable of doing so at the same time. And then walking in this freedom of that magic, and the freedom of knowing it, and being able to get on stage and having my like string of nervousness still, but knowing like this is where I belong. This is where I serve the world best, and so it definitely has been a journey. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, completely relate to that. And I still get nervous when I go on stage too. Like when I go on stage,
Yeah.
I'm talking, I'm telling stories, I'm motivating people, I'm inspiring people, but beforehand, I am a bag of nerves. Actually, I think I'm nervous for like the entire month up to being on stage. I will have nightmares. I will have like recurring dreams that I'm not
Mm,
ready, or that like I'm not prepared enough, or that everyone's going to leave. And then the morning of the event, I wake up and I'm like, it's go time.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I definitely think there are like days I'm really bad, like I will be fine. And then like last minute, like I'm about an hour from stage and I'm just like, oh, I always have to like poop. I don't know if that's like TMI, but I always have to like go to the restroom and like get it out. And I always like ask, can you give me like 5-10 minutes before I'm on? Cause I like need to find some like dark corner or like somewhere away from people to kind of just like curl up for a second, and then you get on stage and you're like, okay, I know how to do this,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this is not new to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where for me, it's like every time I agree to do it, and I put on these big events as well myself, and I'm like,
Yeah.
every time I'm like, remind me why I put myself through
Yeah.
this. And then
Yeah.
as soon as I'm on stage, I'm like, oh yeah, this is why. This
Right.
feels really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. And then it's just like adrenaline the whole time, and it's the best.
100%. Oh, wow. So I would love to hear more about like that exact poem, because that is
Mhm.
just like, wow. How was that poem birthed through you? Does that have a story?
Yeah.
Was it at a particular point in your life?
Yeah. So I wrote that poem let's see, probably a little over a year now, and the poem and the song came separately. So the poem first, I was a teaching artist for a really long time, and I taught for a nonprofit specifically with youth that were incarcerated or rehabbing from a certain substance or a certain abuse. And so I taught them poetry. I would go in for an hour or two and have these sessions with these kids, and so I had them write an I am poem. And an I am poem is pretty simple of just, I am this, I am, here, I am there, I am an ocean, I am, et cetera, and just describing themselves in different way, or really straightforward of like, I'm the oldest child, I'm 17 years old. Sometimes you would have to expand their creativity in those spaces, but I challenged them to utilize ingredients. So a cup full of this, a teaspoon of this. So which is why at the beginning of mine, I'm, one third poet, I'm two-fourth perfectionist, I'm imperfect, chaotic. And so I always wrote with them. I didn't think that I could teach and just be like, here are these things, and I'm having you marshal and bring up all these really maybe hard things to have conversations about, and then me not participate. So I always wrote with them. And so I wrote my version of an I am poem, and that was the poem portion of what I wrote. And then much, much later, I was just driving with my at the time boyfriend, and I words come similarly to songs to me. It's like the spilling kind of thing that happens. It's not really planned or orchestrated. It's just like something that's coming right now, and I really need to pay attention to it. And so I'm driving and I just start humming. And I'm just like humming, but like it's a tune I've known before. And I don't know what's happening because I know I don't know it. And so I'm humming and I'm driving and I like turn the radio off because I was like, okay, I'm clearly something's happening right now and I need to pay attention to
Wow.
it. And so I'm just like humming, humming, humming. And my boyfriend at the time was like, well, he's like, what are you singing? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to figure out what this is. And so I keep humming. And then eventually words start to form and I just start rambling them really. It's just like, there's magic in there's and I did that for just like 5 minutes until eventually it turned into there's magic in your bones. There's there's magic in your eyes. And then I start to record myself because I'm like, I don't know what this is or if I'll get it again. And so then when I started to perform the pieces, I combined them. And I was like, this is weird because I talked about magic in that poem. Maybe I can combine these two. And so I started to perform and combine them and then we actually released it. It's on iTunes and Spotify so you can find that piece on there as well. And I put the story in it on purpose. I wanted it to feel very nostalgic for people. Like I said, when I got the melody to this song, it felt like I was singing something I knew, but I didn't even know what it was at first. And I wanted people's experience, listeners' experience, to be very similar. Like they were in the car with me, like they were humming it themselves and kind of finding a melody and a tune to their own realization of their own magic, if you will. And so yeah, that's how magic, and then in parentheses is in your bones is the name of the piece.
What
Yeah.
do you believe about like creativity being this divine gift that just gets given to us, or like given the opportunity that we have to channel it
Mm-hmm.
from this
Yeah.
genius, from some divine God universe? Like, I'd love to hear more about your creativity and
Mm-hmm.
spirituality, like how that, what your beliefs
Yeah.
are around that.
They're very they're very interchangeable. I grew up in a Christian family. I don't identify with the fullness of Christianity in this season of life, but I know there is something bigger than me. I believe that wholeheartedly. So, God divine for me, it's always been God, and the many faces and complexities of who God is has continued to shift and change. But for me, I believe that these gifts that we've been given are gifts, and for me, they came from God. And so it was kind of like my calling to spill them and to give them to the world. But that's why I feel like some people call them downloads. I call them spills. But like the song, it was like this was not something that presently lived inside of me, even though it felt like it did. But it was being given to me in that moment, and I had to like lean in and press into that moment and listen, really listen for that. And so I get the download conversation in that way, but my writing process is spilling half the time because it doesn't feel like it's not organized, it's not structured. I'm just an idea comes and it's like, are you ready? God's like, are you ready? Because I
Yes.
are you gonna catch it? Because you're like, let me grab something. And
That is
so
so
and it's like
true.
usually like in the shower, like in like savasana, and I'm just like, no, not right now. And then I like sit in my car for like an hour, or I get out of the shower and I'm sitting on the toilet. I'm like writing because it's like this thing that's like I'm giving this to you now. I'm throwing this to you now. Can you
Yes.
catch it? And so for me, I grew up. I'm a pastor's kid and everything, so I grew up very in tune with spirituality and with faith, and I don't know how to separate that entity from who I am and why I orchestrate and why I do the things that I do. And so there's definitely a thread of in this moment I am a megaphone, and if God were to speak a message to his beloved, what would she say, and kind of having that space to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. if people are listening to this, if there's someone listening to this and thinking, wow, like she is so gifted, I wish
Mm,
that I had found my gift. I wish that
mm,
I was creative, or I'm not creative, or I'm not this.
mhm.
Like, do you have any advice to help people find what their gifts are or tap more into
Yeah.
their own creativity?
Yeah. Well, I have a poem, it's called Creative to Create, and I always would tell this to my students too because they're like, "Oh, miss, like I'm not an artist, I'm not a writer. I can't write like that or I can't create like that." And everything in it and its bare form is art. That's ourselves, that's the world around us. Everything is creative because it was created. And so we
Mm,
have the ability to create because we were created. And that is anything from architecture to a math problem to an actual painting to dancing. Everything in itself is creative. Everything in its right and own existing is art, is flair, is a masterpiece. And so it doesn't have to look like other art forms. That is something that I feel like is a trap of like, okay, well, I'm not making anything Mozart made, or I'm not creating
mm,
artwork that this person created. The first is to debunk the comparison and that it has to look like someone else's art form because more than likely, that's not going to be the case. And just to play, I think as adults, we don't really give ourselves the opportunity to play, to explore, to dabble into weird things, to take a class, to take an improv class, to take a sculpting class, giving ourselves the opportunity to play in creativity. And one of my favorite quotes is Marianne Williamson, and she says, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us most. We ask ourselves, who am I to be talented, brilliant, fabulous, gorgeous? Actually, who are you not to be? You playing small does not serve the world." I come back to that quote all the time because us playing small is making the assumption of I can't. Us playing small is making the declaration of I'm not. Versus we are those things. It's just a matter of tapping into them and exploring them. So you are a creative. Everyone is a creative. We were created, therefore we have the ability to then create.
beautiful. And that quote by Marianne Williamson is actually the one that changed my life as well. I
Yeah.
saw it on the wall of my therapist's hall.
Mm,
She sent me out to look at it when I was
mm,
trying to recover from an eating disorder when I was 17. And um, she kind of really saw that I was just making myself really small physically and
mm,
metaphorically. Like I was trying to shrink to be liked, to fit in, instead of taking up space, instead of letting myself be
yeah.
seen, be confident, be the person that I really was. And so I feel that for people tapping into their gifts, you're so right. There's so much to be said around this fear of, what if I shine too brightly? What if
Mhm,
people are offended or hurt? Or what if I upset people because it's too
mm,
much? We're so
yeah.
afraid of being too much. And
Mm.
we could really all afford to lean a little bit more into our too muchness.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so good. I think that is the biggest, that's our fear. Our fear is never, I won't be good enough, but I think the fear is I am, and I'll lose friends, I'll lose community, I'll lose, X, Y, and Z. And that is an implanting that I think fear really presses into our identity and existing. It's that whisper of stay small, because it's not that you can't be anything else, but actually you're so much more than that. And if you actually believe that, if you actually stepped into that awareness of yourself, then there's no telling what you would be able to do in this world and create in this world and transform in this world. And yeah, especially for people who identify as women, there is a stronghold over women and the sacredness of the feminine. And why? Because of how powerful that entity is, and because of how powerful we have the capability of being and existing. And so It is that still small whisper of fear that keeps us small, not because we are, but because we're so much more expansive than that.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel as well for women, it seems to affect women more than men, this comparison
Mm,
piece, which, when you have tapped into your own magic and you're aware of your own greatness and you're able to shine and be in your own lane, it's less of a problem. But I feel that it can really just take over people in
mm,
in stopping them from putting themselves out there because they think, well, someone else has already done it, or
mhm.
someone's already slaying at that.
Yeah,
Like, I'll never be able to do it like
right.
them.
Yeah.
Why do I even bother trying? Like, what new do I have to bring?
Mm,
What new thing do I have to bring to the table? Um,
mhm.
do you have like any words of wisdom around this? Because I know it's something that so many people struggle with.
Yeah, comparison is so hard because it will forever be there. I think we just have to admit that first and foremost is acknowledge, this thing will always be there, and it will be different every time we face it, and that is part of the growth, and that is the part of the just journey of being human. And so I'm if any of you are familiar with the Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 4, and Enneagram 4s tend to have the inherent belief that there's a flaw, that no matter what I do, or what I put out in the world, or how I show up, there will always be like this something wrong with me, that cannot be fixed, that cannot be solved, that cannot be. So the comparison thing, I wrestle with daily, like I won't ever say that this is not something I've been challenged on. And it really comes down to one, the things that I noticed I was comparing, and really dissecting those things of like, oh, well, she got this opportunity and this opportunity and this opportunity. Why didn't I get those opportunities? And when I really looked at them, it was like, well, I don't want those opportunities. Like, in the first place, it was just that sheer like visual of like, oh, that's something I don't have. But when you really look at it, you're like, that's not something I want in the first place. So being
Mhm.
able to debunk that, and then go into the space of like, can I then celebrate this person for the journey that they're on and the doors that were open to them, and then allow that space of somewhat manifesting the opportunities and the moments that will happen to me that someone else will look at and then compare to, right? Instead of looking at these opportunities in that sense of, I didn't have this or I didn't get this, I acknowledge that that happened to them or to her, and I celebrate that that happened to them or to her. And then create a space where I can be open to those opportunities in a similar sense to also happen to me at the same time. Just not, in the same moment, or not in the same breath. And so that was like another layer that I had to really sit with. And then just kind of go into the conversation of like, if how I do things and how I show up in the world is unique to me, then why would I think that there would be a duplicate response to the things that happen around me? So if I'm looking at someone and I'm comparing those moments, what I'm asking is that I have the same exact result in life, the same exact happenings in life, when I don't actually desire those things, because one, I'm a 4, and I like being different. I like doing things my own way. I like being a snowflake. So it's like, no, I don't actually want that same happening to happen to me, because then it looks like everyone else. I want what's specifically ordained for my story and my journey and my path and my life. And so really having to like dissect those initial moments of comparison, and like, why are we here? Really explore what's happening there, and is this something I genuinely want or not? And if so, why? And so I'm definitely an internalizer. I process everything, I self-analyze everything, and so I definitely make myself dissect those moments, and then you're over it by that point. You're like, what was I doing again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. One of the things that's really helped me with comparison is this analogy that an acting teacher actually shared with me. And it was all about how, like, we were talking about like different actors being right for different roles. And like, if two actors go up for the same part, they've got the same lines, it's the exact same role, but they're going to bring something so different to the
Mhm.
role because they're just
Mhm.
completely different people. They've got different gifts. And he said that you have like a specific flavor, like think of yourself as a specific flavor of ice cream. So
Mhm.
like favorite flavor of ice cream. So like mine would be like raspberry chocolate. I
Mhm.
love raspberry and dark chocolate together. Mwah.
Mhm.
So like if I am the flavor of raspberry chocolate, then no matter what I do, I'm going to bring that flavor of raspberry chocolate. And some people are going to be mad for raspberry chocolate and they're going to be
Yeah.
like, holy shit, we love raspberry. Like whatever raspberry chocolate does, we want that
Right.
raspberry freaking chocolate. But then there's going to be someone else that like hates raspberry chocolate, and they're going to be like,
Mhm.
you know what? I do not enjoy any of those projects. But if
Mhm.
someone was actually doing the exact same things but as a mint chocolate chip, I would be
Right.
all over it.
Yeah.
So I feel like each of like if I slip into comparison, I remind myself that I'm raspberry chocolate, and some people are
Mhm.
going to really vibe with that, and some people are not.
Mhm.
And these other people that I'm comparing myself to are just different flavors of ice
Yeah.
cream, which different
Yeah.
people are going to like.
Yeah, yeah, that's so good. I love that. I love that the ice cream scenario too, because it's my like recent, like this last weekend, my husband and I we like picked up ice cream for some friends, and I was like, I want chocolate chip cookie dough. He's like, okay, I'm probably gonna get like a strawberry something. And I was like, oh, strawberry, okay, like whatever, do whatever you want. And then he ends up getting the strawberry cheesecake flavor, and I ended up having more of the strawberry cheesecake than I did the cookie dough because, to my
Mm,
surprise, I actually really liked it. And so I love that conversation of like the ice cream flavors and just everyone has different tastes, everyone has different likings, and sometimes those moments will cross over and you'll find you're both in the room. You both quote unquote
yes.
won in that moment. But then there you will find a lot of times of just like, we just decided to go with the strawberry or with the mint chocolate, and that's just how life works sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And it's like if I feel like if people are scared of like putting themselves out there because they think, well, someone else has already done it, remind
Mhm.
yourself that well, you're a different flavor. So you
Mhm.
could be saying the exact same words, you could be talking about the exact same topic, but it
Right.
lands for someone else it lands completely in a whole new way for them
Right.
because they're hearing it from you and not
Yeah.
this other person.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. So I know you are like your essence on social media, the way you show up is just such a beautiful energy on my feed. I just
Thank
love to
you.
follow you. And it really feels like you found your voice, your
Mm.
lane. It's so I feel like your personality just comes across so beautifully on there and I
Mm.
really connect with what you share. What was your journey like to actually like finding your voice online, like in the online space? Because obviously
Mm.
you're speaking on stage, like you've got this creative journey going on. Like, did you find it hard to translate that online? Did you ever struggle to share your voice?
Yeah. I've kind of always been an open book. I My mom, like growing up, if I would travel or if I would go places, I would come back and she'd be like, who did you talk to? Like what story do you have with you? And so I've always kind of been that I what I imagine to be like listening to John Mayer or Dreaming with a Broken Heart with like laying on the ground. Like I welcome the feels, I embrace the feels, and I do that for others as well. And so I actually, if you go on my Instagram, I never deleted any photos. So you can go all the way back to the very beginning, of just like angsty pictures while traveling, or just like weird things in my room, or just like journal entries, because I didn't want to like ever lose that, if you will. The more I noticed that I started to grow and things like that on social media, and so it was always a space where I felt like I had to try the balance of not being too vulnerable sometimes, because being vulnerable in its essence, I'd never hesitated to do. I feel like I'm not a very surface level person. I don't know how to stay surface level. I'm just like, who are you? What are you about? Tell me your biggest, deepest, darkest secrets, or your wildest dreams. And genuinely wanting to know those about people. And so the same thing kind of happened on social media where I would just, share very honest things with photos that were maybe like taken a week ago or super cute and aesthetic, but in the caption was like in real life and in the real time and what I was feeling or experiencing or exploring. And so for me, it's just kind of like ebbed and flowed over time. Definitely. I think there was a season where I was mostly single. And so that was a lot of my conversation. And then I started dating someone, and then that was a lot of my conversation. And then recently got married. And so weaving that into the conversation. And so I want my space to grow and change just as much as I grow and change. But the thread is always to be as authentic as possible. That I would be the same person online as I am in person. Like, I never want those moments where, people encounter me and they're like, oh, just not the same as when you're online, and I'm like, no, I want it to be a through and through. I don't think that's what social media is set up for us to be different people. And so really making sure that that is consistent, that I am me through and through. And so I've always been an art space person. I've always been like a performer on stage. And so I never really shied away from being honest, if anything, just trying to find a balance of like how to protect my personhood, and not, spill my whole life on a
Yeah.
social media platform, but then also still be real with people at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, oh my God, I really relate to that. I've been the
Mhm.
exact same. And through my whole social media journey, there have been so many phases as well, like so many different chapters of my life. And,
Yeah.
I remember at one point, I actually was considering going back years and years and years and like
Mm.
deleting a load of old stuff. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because
Mhm.
it really is my whole story. Like, if people scroll back enough, like far enough, they'll see me as a vegan food blogger.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
how I started, like sharing
Yeah.
smoothies and
Yeah.
recipes. And like, I was teaching yoga classes at the gym. Like,
Mhm.
that was my first little outlet. And,
Mm.
you know, the different chapters of my life, like starting to work with women around like sharing about healing my own eating
Yeah.
disorder, going on my own self-love journey,
Mm.
getting divorced, traveling.
Right.
But I've been the exact same as you. If anything, like struggle to know when to stop. Like I think I've had
Yeah.
to teach myself when to, okay, sharing that is an overstep. Like
Mhm.
sharing that actually, in like pour yourself out and be vulnerable. But there's been certain things where I would like in the past where I would share and then I would like be anxious for ages after it.
Yeah.
I'd be
Yeah.
checking it and like losing my mind over it. And so I've kind of
Yeah.
had to train myself to not do that anymore, because that's just not good
Right.
for not good for me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. And I think that's such a good test of like, if I hesitate to post, then I don't, until I feel sure about it. And if I'm posting something and I just am like frantic on what the result will be, I will archive it, or delete it because I thought I was ready, but I wasn't ready. And it is hard to have spaces that are very much so a brand, but also still very much so you.
Mm.
And my husband is really good at. He'll just be like, "Oh, I just deleted it. Like I don't. I'm just not, for a while." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, this is like part of my job, so I can't really do that." But having him be so disengaged sometimes is really helpful for me to also know when to step back, and rest and heal. And so even this past week, we went to Big Bear for a few days, which is just like an hour away from where we're at in LA area. And I was like so anxious that I wasn't posting for like almost 3 days. And I was like, oh, my engagement and this, and I'm not posting in the algorithm and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, screw that, first of all. Like, this should not have that much of a hold on me, And so the
Yeah.
first thing I did post was that you can be still and still be enough. And I put that in the caption of like, I was anxious about not posting for a few days. And then I realized how ridiculous, that was. And that I'm still valuable. I still have a I'm still worthy here. I still have things to contribute, but I also need to rest for a little bit. I need to step back for a little bit, and was very
Mm.
honest in that. And now I notice, like, the most recent post that I've done since then, I've been super excited about. Like, I will post it and do my things, and then I'll just go on my weary way. Like, I'm not, addicted to it. And so it's really powerful what stepping back does, what rest does, and also to realize, like, we're still people, and inside of these brains, and there is a permission, of just protecting certain things, that is not for everyone. And for me, at first, it was just like people would come visit, and I would go get coffee with them, and then it was just like, "Can I pick your brain?" I'm like, "Yeah," and I just was so accessible. To everyone, and my husband was actually the first person to say, you don't, you not everyone deserves every part of you. And I really had to, like, sit with that. I'm just like, oh, I can make those boundaries. I can step back. I can create that space of, like, I will share with you. I will be honest with you in this journey. But also, I'm allowed to protect my personhood, and making sure that's a priority. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And if you don't do that, you can't show up from the same space. You
Mhm.
can't give the way that you give because you've not been
Mhm.
honoring your own magic and taking care
Yeah.
of you.
Yeah.
And otherwise, you're just giving from this drained space of just take everything, take it all,
Right.
have it all.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
had a similar realization because I used to be the same. Like, I would land in a country and get a message from someone saying, "I'm in this country. Should we go for coffee?" And I'd be like,
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
Yeah.
Instead of like, why, like, I don't need to go for a coffee with someone that I've never met. Like, if
Yeah.
I, like, why
Mhm.
do we feel the need to say yes? It's definitely
Mhm.
like learning to have those boundaries for myself has definitely been a big part of my journey, especially
Yeah.
online. I'm sure you get a ton of DMs as well asking for advice and
Mhm.
guidance. And,
Mhm.
it can be a lot. Like, I have to be really discerning about who I respond to and how I respond so that I'm not spending my
Yeah.
whole day in DMs. And, then I'm
Yes.
like, wait a minute, like, I've got paying
Right.
clients and I've got programs, and like, I should really have
Yeah.
taken better care of my energy today. And there's so much
Mm.
to be said around that piece of just managing your own energy and knowing
Mhm.
what's a yes and what's a no. And I've
Yeah.
really learned on this to check in with my body. And if
Mhm.
energetically my body feels expansive to something, then I will move towards it. But if I
Right.
feel like like a kind of really subtle contraction, then I know
Mm.
that it's time to put the phone down or not
Mhm.
respond, or you know
Yeah,
not give too
step back.
much.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Yeah.
Mm. You shared this recently on social media, which I just thought was so powerful. Though there is wild courageousness in my ability to step up, I will also remember that there is wild courageousness and audacity in my ability to step back. Can you speak into that a little more? Because I feel that that is similar to what we've been speaking on and just really
Mhm.
powerful.
Yeah. Well, that's like there's a twofold there. One is, this past week, and knowing that I was, going away for a few days, and really trying to be intentional with that being away and having it be restful, and not just me doing what I already do at home, but at somewhere else, that it was like an actual distinction of healing and resting. And I run my own social media, but then I also work for a nonprofit, and that's like my every like my paid consistently freelance gig, is helping with their social media. And so I'm in it and on it all the time, and giving myself the permission to step back in those moments was really hard. I am also the oldest child. I am, I always am like, is everyone good? Is everyone okay? Like, can I step back? No, I can't step back, because then everything will fall apart, which is so not true. But noticing that in myself, and like going into that week of resting, and knowing that I would be stepping back, and I won't be the first person to respond to an email of doing something, or getting something done, or returning to an email, or things like that. And so that's where that kind of came from. And then also just noticing in this like past year for myself, and just navigating boundaries and new relationships with being recently married and things like that, and knowing that like usually I'm the oldest, so I'm always stepping up, I'm always showing up for people. But what would happen if I don't do that? What would happen for my own sanity, for my own relationship, if I maybe step back and step into something else? And so there, I notice, especially for women, it's like, and right now it's like half this weird pandemic space where it's like you can be calm, you don't have to do a bunch of things, you can rest, but then it's also like, but now is the time to do everything. And you're like, okay, so like which one do I sit in? And for me, like at the beginning, I was really just like, okay, this is time to rest, which we do not really get a whole lot. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna take advantage of it. And then
Mhm.
people figured out how to live online. And then it was like workshops and online conferences and summits and like all these things. And then I got overwhelmed, because I was like, I said yes to too much.
Yes.
And so in this season of life, I'm really learning the art of stepping back and the healing of stepping back, which was like so scary because at first it's always like, I'm gonna miss something, I'm gonna miss like something that I'm supposed to be involved in. But if it's really part of you or story, if it's really something you're supposed to experience, you won't miss it. It will
Mm.
come in good time and good opportunity. And it's okay to say no. I am an awful say noer. And so really learning to say no right now, and like getting more help with like within my own team and professionalism to help me say no
Mm.
has been like really helpful. So a lot of stepping back in this season of life, and it's been really restorative. Yeah.
Mm. Oh my God, I relate so much to that. I'm
Hmm.
the oldest child as well, and
Hmm.
I struggle to step back for sure, and I struggle to say no. It's definitely like this fear of missing out, especially if there's like a social, like a people that I really want to meet, or,
Yeah.
a dinner that I really want to go to, but
Yeah.
actually I'm exhausted and really need to listen to my body. But I'm like, no, I need to go.
I need
I
to
need
be there. And then you get there and you're like, oh, this was not worth it. Like I should have stayed
Yeah.
home. And I just had too
Yeah.
many moments like that where I was just like, it wasn't worth it. And you stressed out for it. Like that is not healthy. Like that's not,
Yeah.
yeah.
I had this lesson come through really strongly because about a month ago, I got tonsillitis and I
Mm,
was super unwell, like could barely speak. And
mm.
yet I had just signed up a bunch of new clients and I was like, I'm still going to do those sessions. Like
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to show up on Zoom and I'm just going to whisper and I'm going to hold the space. And then as soon as I've finished, I'm going to go back down onto the couch and I'm going to crawl in under the duvet and fall asleep and take all my things that I was taking, all
Yes.
my honey and my lemon and my different
Right.
ointments and all the things I had. And it was crazy because I came to do these sessions and firstly the internet would just completely crash or like the power
Mm,
would go out or like
mm,
something would happen to like
mm-hmm.
to stop me from doing the session.
Yeah.
I was like, no. And then Rick, my boyfriend, was like, maybe it's a sign that you should rest. And I was like, well, I think it's a sign that we need to move somewhere with better internet. And then I remember the next time I came to do a client session and I get to my laptop, I'm like, I've tried to make myself look like a human being. I've like put some earrings in. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do this session and then I'm gonna sleep. But I need to do the session. And then I check my email inbox and she has cancelled because she
Yeah.
says I wasn't feeling well. And I was like,
Mm,
oh, there's the
mhm,
lesson. She can
mhm.
cancel because she's not feeling well, but for some reason I have to show up when I'm
Yeah,
sick,
yeah,
So I was
yeah,
like, I really learn well from seeing other people put down their boundaries and really listen to
yeah.
themselves. It reminds me.
I agree. My husband is really good at that, of just like, no, because it won't feel good, or no because I don't feel comfortable, or no because I'm exhausted, and I'm just like, no, we gotta push and we gotta go and we gotta do the thing. And that is healthy to an extent. There's a balance to that,
Mm.
but then there's also, it's okay to not like it is okay to be. And I love that conversation of being human beings and not human doings.
Mm.
It's okay to just be sometimes, and that is a returning to who we are, just a being and not a doing. And I forget that often. So it is a good reminder to go back to being sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel that when we do, it's almost like we like, what's the word? Like we just fill up and resource of, like we
Hmm.
fill up the resource of our own magic again,
Yeah.
which I feel
Yeah.
like we keep
Yeah.
coming back to, like your magic, your own magic.
Hmm.
And if you are constantly pushing, then you're like, that well is going to get dry because you've not
Yeah.
been replenishing it. Replenish was the word I was
Mhm.
looking for.
God, yeah, yes, yeah, absolutely. What is the quote? Is it, you can't pour from an empty cup, and that is
Mhm.
so true to a lot of things of just like, wow, I don't feel like I'm creating or showing up or loving as well as I could be because I'm not creating or showing up for or loving myself, in those moments where I can't find time to just sit down, and read and really having those moments of rest and Sabbath and restoration is like super it's important. We truly can't live without them. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, Ariel, what is something in your life right now that you are super excited about? Like, what's going
Mhm.
on in your world?
Yeah, I am really excited just for the conversations that I'm having on social media. I think those continue to bring me life and they're kind of like little hints at a book that I'm working on. And so I'm kind of seeing how people respond to them. And so I'm excited to have like my first publication that is not done with another person. It will be the first book I write with just my name on it, which is so scary, but also so exciting. And in the pandemic space, I've just been trying to release more things on iTunes and Spotify. I think before this, the last thing I released was like 2015 or
Mm.
2016, and so I've been
Wow.
slowly releasing at least like a little bit of something over the past 3 months, every month, and so I have two more projects that I'm working on and releasing those, and so I'm really thankful just for the space to create here, and to have the permission to create here has been really exciting, and so yeah, those are the spaces I think that bring me the most joy right now.
Mm, beautiful.
Thank
And I
you.
have three questions that I always ask every guest. So, the
Mhm.
first one is, what is something that you are loving right now?
Something I am loving right now, are my plants. I have like lots of plants in my house, which has been really fun. And trying to like, I have this app now where if you take a picture of the plant's leaves, it'll tell you like what the plant is, the scientific name, how to take care of it. And so I've been like
What?
really geeking out over my plant app. And
Oh,
my
wow.
husband is like a true nerd. He's like going to school to be a history teacher. And so whenever I'm like, ooh, my plant app, he's like, ooh, okay, get nerdy. And I just like love it so much. So my plants are something that I really love right now. And then like food wise, which is I don't know why this is the first thing I'm thinking of, but sure. Um, there's this sauce. It's called bitchin sauce, and it's from Whole Foods, and it's so good. Like, I'm allergic to a lot of additives and stuff, so, like,
Mhm.
MSG and carrageenan, and so any sauces I usually just stay away from because they most likely have both of those items in it, but this is, like, all clean ingredients, and it's amazing, like, it has a little kick to it, so this one is, like, the chipotle one, and it tastes amazing on avocado toast, like, it will change your avocado toast game. So those
Ooh,
are those are my 2, my plants and my bitchin' sauce.
nice. Bitchin' sauce from Whole Foods, everyone. You've
Yes.
heard it here. Great. And what is something that turns you on?
I love conversations that, like, make the other person excited. Like, I love having conversations with people where, like, you can kind of see their eyes kind of, like, sparkle a little bit or light up, like, those make me so happy, and I find people the most beautiful and the most attractive in those moments. And
Mm,
then also, yeah, just exploring new information. I feel like we're in a world right now where it's like we thought we knew a lot, but we don't actually know a whole lot. And so finding ourselves in a space where we so eager to learn and soak up information. And so when someone spews like a fact about something, I'm like, I didn't know about that, and then we go in this like spiral of exploration and curiosity I find very attractive as well. Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
And then finally, when was the last time you experienced magic?
Probably this past week, I'm in Big Bear and just being in the trees and the mountains. Like I'm in LA, so it's pretty straightforward suburban. So anytime I can be in nature, I always find the most whimsical. And it's like all these fields of like wildflowers and things like that, and then like different birds that were like not just your typical blue jay and things like that I just find so in awe of just like the created, and then also including myself in that as well, is just something that I find continuously magical. Like I could be in a nature spot forever. So yeah,
Yeah, I hear
yeah.
you completely. Oh, Arielle, this has been such a soulful, rich conversation.
Mm,
I've just loved having you here. How can
thank you.
everyone come and find you and work with you and spend more time with you having these conversations online?
Yeah. My name, Arielle Estoria, so that's Arieelleestoria, and that's on Instagram. I respond to DMs like text messages, like we were just talking about. Well, some days I step back, but for the most part, I will respond to you. That's also on Twitter, my website, and then, like I said, I have music and poetry on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, if you're underground like that. Apple Music, all of that fun stuff. And you can find all my books on my website, which is ariellestoria.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so
Thank
much for being
you.
here. This has been a
Thank you.
pleasure. We're going to head over and get a couple more personal questions from the members of our
Amazing.
community. Thank
Cool.
you so much, honey.
Thank you.
Speak soon. So, I hope you loved that episode, my loves. If you did, please share it on your Instagram stories, tag me and tag Arielle so we can reshare it and know that you are loving this episode. Hit subscribe if you haven't already and leave us a review so more people can come and find this podcast. And have a beautiful rest of your week, and I'll see you next time.